Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, bringing you the news. As part of the celebrations of the 76th anniversary of the end of World War II, the head of the Office for War Veterans and Victims of Repression, Józef Kasprzyk, paid tribute to Polish soldiers killed on all fronts of World War II. The ceremony took place in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier in Warsaw. The Second World War was the largest military conflict in the history of mankind. The scale of fighting, combined with the many atrocities committed against the civilian population, primarily by Germany, the Soviet Union, and Japan, caused human losses on an unprecedented level. As a nation and a state, Poland lost the war. We lost it in a national sense, as an enormous percentage of our national elite was killed. Up to 30% of our intelligentsia died during the war. We were also destroyed, materially speaking, by both occupants, the Germans and the Soviets. Following the end of the war, the nations of Central Eastern Europe, Poland included, ended up under Soviet control, causing almost 5 decades of economic stagnation under a planned economy. The Second World War remains the largest challenge for German historical politics and its attempt at atonement. According to the historian Jan Zarin, their historical politics is based on offers to share the blame of Nazi ideology with other nations. World War II lasted 6 years, during which more than 50 million people lost their lives, 6 million of them being Polish citizens. Poland was also the state which suffered the largest percentage of its total population killed, with the figure standing at nearly 20%. Speaking at the morning press briefing ahead of the second day of the EU Social Summit in Portugal, Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki presented the position his government took at the overnight negotiations regarding whether the patents for the COVID-19 vaccines should be abolished. Today, the Polish Prime Minister will attend an informal meeting of the European Council. The phrase "making the vaccine communal" is the path forward. We want the companies which have the capacity needed to produce in Europe, in the European Union. We want them to be able to make use of that capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, every month of speeding up the vaccine production process for Poland, for Poles, and for residents of the European Union is a month closer to complete eradication of the pandemic. We also know that in connection with the increasing production capabilities, we will be able to more quickly deliver vaccines to other parts of the world, and we must remember that the pandemic is global, so we need to vaccinate at least 70 to 80% of the world's population.
Pandemia globalna.
Following the introduction of a number of coronavirus rescue packages, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen now warns that Washington's finances are stretched and that the U.S. could once again hit the debt ceiling as early as of July. Speaking at a press conference, the Treasury Secretary stated that the nation could exhaust its ability to borrow this summer even if the Treasury takes extraordinary actions to buy more time when the nation's debt ceiling comes back into effect at the end of July.
So all I can really tell you is that the debt ceiling comes back into effect on July 31st. And there are a series of so-called extraordinary measures that are ordinary in the sense that they've been used many times in the past. But it is exceptionally challenging this time to try to figure out just how long those measures are going to last, in part because of higher and more volatile spending and revenue numbers associated with the state of the economy and the pandemic. So we have evaluated a range of scenarios, and we are concerned that there are scenarios that would give a very limited amount of additional time through the use of extraordinary measures. But I can't really be more precise than that.
She also commented on the recent weaker-than-expected job numbers, saying that the U.S. economy is facing a bumpy road ahead.
We've had a very unusual hit to our economy, and the road back is going to be somewhat bumpy. We have to expect that. There are a variety of bottlenecks that are also relevant. So we've seen motor vehicle production shut down in some places because of a shortage of semiconductors. There was a loss of jobs there this month. there were setbacks in the lumber industry because of shortages there. So, starting up an economy again, trying to get it back on track after a pandemic in which there are a lot of supply bottlenecks is going to be, I think, a bumpy process. But I really don't think the major factor is the extra unemployment.
The hiring figures for April came as a cold shower as Dow Jones had forecasted that well above 1 million jobs would be added to the economy. Instead, the figure barely crossed 2,500,000, and the figure for March was also revised down. The unemployment rate rose to 6.1%. Family and friends of the 27 members of a Brazilian organized crime group killed on Thursday during a 9-hour shootout with Rio de Janeiro police have taken to the streets to protest what they claim to be extrajudicial killings by the law enforcement. Marching in a Jacarezinho favela controlled by the criminal gang, the protesters were joined by social activists from other parts of the city to decry President Jair Bolsonaro's support for tough policing. Rio's police are amongst the most deadly in the world, but right-wing President Jair Bolsonaro has argued that the police needed fewer restrictions on lethal force when dealing with criminal gangs, as they work under conditions in which hesitation often leads to their own demise. The situation was similar on Thursday as the raid against the Comando Vermelho, or Red Command gang, started by 48-year-old officer Andre Frias losing his life in a surprise attack. Interviewed by Global, Adriana Santana Araujo claimed her son was innocent and described the police for killing him during the raid. The men were to hand themselves over and the police came in and killed them. They killed my son. There are 25 mothers crying. Her interview became less credible when the internet users dug up videos of her dancing together with family members in a bulletproof vest and wielding an AK-47 rifle, together with other videos showing the gang driving around in the favela loaded with illegal weapons. This is grounds for significant reflection. They were young, they were black, they were poor, and they lived in marginal communities. They were killed on the streets and in the houses of other poor black people. Would this have happened in an upper-class neighborhood? Would this have happened in a house belonging to whites? Police representatives assured that the lethal force had to be used in self-defense. The only execution that took place during the operation was that of a policeman, executed in cold blood by the traffickers. The other deaths happened as a result of shooting against the police. We had to respond, and they were neutralized. The police also confirmed that no passers-by were killed in the crossfire. That's all for today. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily.